Welcome everybody back to Velo Sound Interview Sunday. We have a very interesting guest here whose band has kept us waiting for quite a few years. I'm very happy to have F's Niklas Åström here on the show. Niklas, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So first question that I tend to ask everybody as for a few weeks now, what is the band merch or band shirt of the day that you are wearing?
I'm all blank. Blank.
New Zealand rugby team. I always like to plug something, so I'm wearing something from Hardcore Help Foundation today. Very, very interesting charity organization who tries to help out people. And of course, I have a hardcore punk background. So, but then the next question, Christopher, Niklas, where are we catching you right now?
I'm in my living room at home.
Okay.
With still daylight, so.
Yeah, for how many hours left in Sweden?
90 minutes, I guess. So keep it.
Oh, really?
I
thought it was just a joke question. I mean, like the sun goes down here at the moment, Germany 8. So it's already much earlier in Sweden. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And then, of course, because of the title of your record, of a new upcoming record, I have to ask you this. When asked to choose one of the following two alternatives, which one would you choose? For maybe it's because you like the title more or because it's more similar to the new record. Which one do you choose? For Those About to Rock by AC/DC or Salute the Gods by Busta Rhymes?
Well, Busta Rhymes have never been my favorite rapper. AC/DC have never been my favorite rock band either. So, but I guess we would go with AC/DC because they have a little bit more delay guitars in the intro, I believe.
That's true. So you've already said that Busta hasn't been your favorite rapper. Who would that have been?
I mean, I don't have a rapper background. I have more of a punk hardcore background as you. And I remember when we were younger and listened to the few rapping artists, it was probably Beastie Boys or maybe a little bit of Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah, I can imagine Beastie Boys. That was something for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Concerning your band name, I just want to get that clear once and forever. How is the spelling of the name? Is it F with only small letters? Is it F only with capital letters? Or how shall we spell it?
We have seen a lot of different spellings on our name through the years, especially on tour posters before we started to create them ourselves, because promoters didn't really know how to write it. I heard you also saying F as a word. We say it as EF, like the two letters.
So is it then also two capitals?
Sometimes we use two capitals, or sometimes just the small letters. But we don't really care as long as you don't mix in a lot of dots or apostrophe or other crazy things we have seen out there.
So let me get this straight. So EF would basically be okay in both versions, with capitals and with small letters, as long as it's not one capital, one small letter, to make it clear that it's...
It shouldn't be any spaces or dots or any other signs, but we usually use it as small letters ourselves on album covers or posters and stuff like that, and we usually use it with big letters just to mark it out that it's about EF.
Mm-hmm. Now, as I said before, you've kept us waiting for a few years. Is it 5 years, 6 years since the last released music by EF? I think that was the split that you did on Pelagic, right?
Yeah, music-wise, we released the split EP in 2016, so that would be a 6-year celebration now. But we went quiet after 2018, we did our last show at actually the Pelagic Fest in Berlin. We took some, not planned, but a little bit of time off to just reflect on other things, but the time went by.
Did that also, or did COVID also have an effect on that time becoming longer and longer, or was it a more unconscious thing?
I believe that COVID made it easier for us to blame something else than our own laziness.
Okay.
But it also made the core members of EF to actually start texting and discussing what we would do if we would do one last push. Since we haven't seen each other for many years, we thought we can't just sit around and just leave it to that. We must do something before call it quits. But so the COVID also made it possible for us to start playing with each other again, because suddenly we had a lot of time. We couldn't go out to bars or restaurants or visit grandparents or go on holidays for the full summer or stuff like that. So it also made it easier for us to actually get back together.
So was it like a reset?
Kind of a reset, because we met up. It was just me, Thomas, and Daniel that was with us from the beginning. And Daniel haven't been with us since the Hiref recordings for the split EP. So it was kind of a reset to just meet up the three of us and start doing something and see what would come out. And all of a sudden we actually just had a few songs ideas or whatever. So, some scraps that we could work with to create full songs with it.
But you basically met to also discuss the future of a band, and all of a sudden it clicked again. So then at least COVID had a good effect.
Exactly. So it wasn't just bad.
Yeah, in that way, I've heard similar things from a lot of artists, who said like, okay, we used the time to own our skills, to get a little bit better at what we do and stuff like that. So there is something interesting about that. You said that you also very quickly had some scraps for sounds and some ideas. Did your writing process in any way change for this new record, or is it the same as always?
It kind of was changed. It changed back to, I remember when we recorded our 2010 album, Morning Golden Morning. It was the same three members, me, Daniel, and Thomas, that created that full album. And we just met up and slammed it out and made more like 2 guitars and drum, punk, noisy tracks that became post-rock tracks in the studio. But it was kind of the same thing here, that we didn't have a plan. We didn't have the deal with Pelagic that they would release an album. We didn't even know if Daniel, that had been absent from the band for such a long time, actually wanted to be in the band again. So that was kind of a tricky thing to plan or decide that now we're going to do an album, because we didn't even know if we wanted to play with each other again. And we didn't even have a practice room, so we rented one of these rooms you pay for per hour, that has like a really trashy drum kit that a lot of metal drummers slam on, never changed skins or anything, and there was some kind of digital small amplifiers, and it sounded shit, but we succeeded to tweak it out and record some scraps and pieces that could turn into EF material if we got into the studio and recorded it properly.
But that also sounds as if you also took some time, not hurry stuff, not rush things.
I think it's harder when you know that you're going to release an album because you need to go on tour or stuff like that. Then you really want to do the perfect thing, and you wanted to work with the songs, and you need to plan everything. And this time when we were only 3 people that started to create the songs, it felt like we don't have to take so many other ideas into the basket. We can just, as I said, we play whatever comes out, and if it's nice, we record it on our iPhones and put it in the Dropbox and let the other guys listen to it. If they like it, we continue to work with it. If they don't, then we try to work it with it a little bit more and force them to like it in the end. But so it wasn't like a full band decision how the song would sound like. It was more like we did most of the basics, and then Eric came down from Stockholm to play his beautiful parts on it.
I don't know if you are aware of it, but I think that your band is used very often as a reference when it comes to the sound of new post-rock bands. Because you have a very unique sound, and we'll also come to that in a moment. Were you aware of this rather unique position of EF?
I think we've been together now for 20 years. And when we started to play post-rock music, the bands we listened to were pretty in a specific way. All of them were often instrumental, like Explosions in the Sky and Godspeed and Mogwai. But we had the influences from the hardcore scene, and we mostly listened to indie rock ourselves or other things. So we wanted to blend in all those melodies and influences in our music, which meant we had a great singer who could actually sing, which meant we could use the vocals. We had a guy who could play a lot of pianos and blend in all that to get something more than just the tough post-rock sound coming from America. Which means
you go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of people say that we have kind of a Scandinavian sound, because a lot of people think a lot of the Scandinavian post-rock bands have this kind of dynamics and the mood in the music, such as PG Lost, Jenny Forever, or if you go for the bigger bands such as Sigur Rós or something like that, it's something else. You still says it's post-rock, but so I mean, our position, since we were so early with adapting that as a young band, I think now when we're an old band, a lot of people use us as a reference because we've been around for such a long time and
definitely
played a lot of shows, and it's easy for people to know about us and how we sound like.
Yeah, and I also think that there is a lot about that, for lack of a better word, that beauty in your music. I very often have a feeling that you are not trying to emulate the typical loud versus quiet dynamic. You are, at least the way that I perceive it, very often working within the differences in sound. It's not just the dynamics, which also makes it very interesting to listen to your band. But when you were creating this, the way that you describe it, there was no pressure situation. You didn't feel as if you had to do anything. But was there, or is there ever a problem for a band like yours, or probably for any other post-rock band, not to repeat oneself?
I think, of course, it's a problem, because you often hear on bands kind of releasing the same album twice or even 3 times before evolving. Sometimes they evolve to something worse than they used to be, and sometimes they create something new. And And we have always tried to evolve the EF sound. We always wanted to still use the vocals and work a lot with the orchestral parts, using a lot of horn section and the violins and all like that. But I think our own pressure is that we want to do something that's not only for ourselves. I mean, we don't have anything to prove that we are good musicians, or that we can play as fast as possible, or as most difficult drum fills or anything. We rather put what we're feeling at the moment, we put it in the song. And as you say, sometimes it becomes beauty, and sometimes it becomes a little bit more raw and ugly and aggressive. But the mix of all those emotions becomes the EF sound.
Yeah, it's also interesting that you say it, because, you know, when listening to the record, you already dropped the name of Sigur Rós. I think there are definitely some Sigur Rós moments on the record, for example, Leuven. But also some sound like very well done, fast-paced post-punk, like nearly like Bauhaus. For example, Wolves Obey. I think that was a very, very interesting track. So how difficult is it for you to get, first of all, those songs done correctly, and second of all, to get those very diverse songs into the correct order on the record? Is that something that you think about a lot?
Of course, you want to keep the record interesting. I'm still the old school guy that wants to listen to an album from start to finish. I don't like this whole releasing singles. I had the idea that you want to push into social media nowadays. But you always want to have like the dynamic roller coaster. You can't have like 4 songs sounding exactly the same in a row. People will mix it up, and they will stop thinking about what they're listening to. They will just think it's just another track.
Yeah, and it becomes background music, right?
Exactly, a little bit like that. So we try to make a dynamic trip, but also our songs themselves are very diverse and dynamic in itself. So I think we think about it more than the listener think about it.
So would you say that this is like getting the track list right? Is that like one of the more is it more difficult than getting the songs right?
Absolutely not. I think the songs themselves are the record. The track list is just to get it out right. And usually it's easy to set the first song and the last song, because you always feel that this is opening and this is the end. Usually the most aggressive track is the end track. But then the songs in the middle are it shouldn't just be a transportation. It needs to be something that sometimes catches the interest.
It got to keep the level of interest right. Yeah. I also always like
exactly.
the track titles that you choose and the record titles that you choose, because very often you have like, I don't want to say like puns, but you have a tendency to play with words. Let's put it like that. And what struck me on the new record is a track title called Hymn Of, and then you only have 3 dots, as if you wanted to let the listener insert whichever word he or she thinks is correct there. Is that something that you did on purpose? You know, leave this ending to the track title open?
Yes, you got it pretty much correct, I believe. Because we don't want to say what people should think or feel when they listen to the music. And if we would say a hymn of ambulances, then people will think it's about the COVID disease or something like that.
True.
But if we just say like it's a hymn of whatever you think it should be a hymn about, some people will think it's about sailors, some people think it's about love, some people think it's about animals, I don't know. But also it's combined into another song that comes afterwards, which is kind of an outro for the song, but in its own song. So it would be also, as I say, maybe a little bit of a playfulness to say to people that it's a hymn of the next track, or similar to something like that.
Hymn itself is also one of the hardest tracks that I ever heard by you. So where does that punch come from? You know.
As I mentioned earlier, we all have a hardcore background, but we never been about playing as hard as we could do if we wanted to, because we don't want to be too aggressive for the indie crowd, and we don't want to be too poppy for the metal crowd. We want to please both. And we don't want to be too progressive, so we can only get the old prog rock men and women coming to our shows. So we want to keep everyone interested in the song. So, but I think when we recorded it, as I said, we had a pretty shitty practice room, and it was noisy, and that was kind of one of the first track we actually did for the new album, and we felt like, when we did the outro part, we were like, is this too aggressive for EF, or will people like it? And then we came up with it. Yeah, and then people in the band said, maybe we should scream. Embrace our hardcore roots with some screaming in the end. And that was kind of a tryout, which we kept. And we hope it brings something new to the feelings.
I definitely think it's a very, very interesting side of EF. But you've already mentioned something that I would like to strike back on. You've mentioned we want to basically get everybody in. So that is something that I really like. You as a band never seem to question whether a band should hold an appeal to people. You know, it seems as if, you know, we all know that so many bands out there are saying like, oh, we just do this for ourselves, you know. But it seems as if you like to get everybody in, as if you like to be accessible, as if you like to appeal to a lot of different people. Is that something that is at the core of EF also? Accessibility?
I mean, we're pretty. The diversity of the band members through the years have been very. It's been a lot of band members coming and going, and when we've been touring, we have played almost every village in Germany, I think, and we've been to goth festivals, and we've been to street punk festivals, and we've been to indie festivals, and metal festivals and hardcore festivals in Belgium. And we, as I said, if people like us there, why shouldn't we come there to play? Why should we be said, no, we only do this event or this event, or we can't play for punk rock people, they will be too loud for us. We want to have people sitting down and questioning themselves. But we like the idea of having people from all ages and the music scenes and all the subcultures coming to our shows and enjoying our music, and why not?
That is also something that I really like. Your music is always very enjoyable, even a harder track like him. It's always a good feeling listening to EF. Also because a lot of the tracks are just as long as necessary. They never seem to have any kind of prop on or add on that is unnecessary. You know, you seem to say, okay, this song is only 4 minutes long. Perfect. Next song, 6 minutes. Next song, maybe a little longer. How do you know when the song is just on the right length?
I mean, the songs can be in the post-rock scene 25 minutes if you're down to that.
Yeah,
we always
my
try
father,
to
my king.
Yeah, or Godspeed. They have 4 tracks on an album. I think that's also kind of where we come from, the hardcore scene. We don't want the songs to be too long because people would probably get tired of it. But to be honest, I think there's a lot of parts of the songs that we have done that we now 10 years later feel that that part should have been twice as long, or that when you get into the songs, when you be growing with them, you feel that this is such a beautiful part. It's too bad it was so short, something like that. But when we're creating the songs, we usually think that we rather make the parts as long as we think they are interesting for ourselves. Because when we get tired of it, when we think, now we have been listening to this for too many minutes.
Yeah.
Now when something must happen. So it's more of a feeling that you get when if we don't really enjoy it, why should other people enjoy it? So we always start with ourselves and rather have people listening to the track 2 or 3 times in a row because they enjoy the part so much, than have people listening to a song that is 20 minutes long and they like, finally it's over.
Yeah. But could you, as you say, like there are songs from earlier albums where you say like, okay, that could be a little longer or maybe also in some parts a little shorter. Have you ever considered doing a real live record where you say like, okay, those are like 10 songs which we want to do differently than before? Is that something that would appeal to you now after 20 years also?
The idea of a live album have struck us actually, because it would be a nice, as you say, a nice take on it, because it would probably sound very different live. We have tried to do some live recordings, but we never really think they have been good enough to actually work with. There's always mistakes been done when you're recording stuff. There's some devil in there that's fucks things up. But yeah, it's in our mind that there will maybe be something like that in the future if we continue to keep this circus going for a few more years.
Would be very interesting to listen to that.
Yeah.
You've already mentioned that you have a singer who can really sing, which is not unheard of, but not very common in post-rock. Let's put it like that. But sometimes it seems to me that your singer is not singing lyrics, but he's vocalizing. Is that also showing that voice for you as a band, as EF, is just another instrument or just another source of sound?
Yes, when we started EF, it was mainly focused to be in the background and just sometimes even mixed so low that it should just people really had to pay attention to it to hear the lyrics. And usually the lyrics aren't that worked out. It's maybe just a phrase that we come up with in the last minute that we just repeat and play around with. Because we never really have a verse and a refrain. We usually only have a long verse and then a lot of different parts that takes the song somewhere else. But last, I think nowadays we want to work with words, but usually we never get them right. Usually we think it's getting too cheesy when we decide to sing a lot, that it becomes too poppy for the metalheads. And but it's fun, and we also have Daniel that plays the pianos and guitars. He's really good at singing as well, so we have two good singers, so we can do it, and we just need to write the proper songs to use it more commonly.
You also sometimes have female vocals on the record. Is that then again a different approach, you know, having a woman sing on the record? Or on a song, better said.
Yes, of course. It's lovely to have the duet feeling. And I think that the songs that have been kind of the duets become some of our most listened to songs and popular songs when we've been playing live. But the thing is, when we don't tour with a female vocalist, Daniel have to sing the high pitched parts, and it's usually never sound as good as when. But for the last album, Ceremonies, released in 2013, we didn't have any female vocalists, and we actually got the question sometimes why we didn't have, because we used to have it on our previous albums. And this time around, we had a friend, Johanna, that sings on this album a little bit, and also some kind of spoken word poem reading. And it was just interesting to have another source that could come in and put her own feelings to what she heard the song for the first time, and when we kind of just like do something with this. Words that we have written on the paper, and she put her own feelings to it.
Sometimes you also have horn sections or passages on your record. Are those real horns, or are they produced by synthesizer?
No, always real. We used real strings and horns ever since our first album. We've always been lucky to find musicians that can do it, and also can do it a little bit without having a proper, what you call it, with all the notes and stuff like that, and the time to actually work with it, and not just that you don't have to practice a lot more. Also, the same thing with the female vocals, like. Here's a part, we think that it should sound very, very like you're longing for someone, or that you're alone on a sinking ship. Play with your heart and make it sound in this kind of way. And usually they nail it on the first try, so we're quite lucky with that.
Also speaks for their talent.
Yeah.
When listening to post-rock, a lot of people always search for the instrument. You know, a lot of my friends say, okay, when I listen to Pelican, the drums are the storytelling instrument, or when listening to other bands, it's the keys, the keyboards. Do you think that EF has such a narrative instrument? And if you think so, which one would it be?
I would say of course it's the guitars. It's very guitar driven and piano driven lately. I wouldn't say it's drums, but me as a drummer, we always try to make maybe a little bit more diverse beats than the typical beats, just to keep it interesting. Because, as I said, we're not here to show off that we're good at our instruments or play as fast as we can or as technical as we can. We want it to be catchy and sometimes loud and aggressive and sometimes quiet and soft. Sometimes the best part is even when there is hardly any instruments at all, when it's just almost quiet. And maybe, as you mentioned, maybe just have the horns and maybe some piano and vocals. I think it's more the mood that drives our music than any specific instrument.
So this is, if I remember correctly, this is your third record or your third release out on Pelagic. Is this EF's permanent home now?
We usually we have run our own label for the last 20 years and wanted to keep it like that until now, because we don't have the time anymore. We have kids and families and full-time jobs and all the stuff that makes it's a lot of work to run a label. So we've been friends with Pelagic for such a long time now, so we thought let's let them get the license for EF music for a while. All props to Captain Platte that's been with us, the German label Captain Platte that has been with us also from 2010, but only on the vinyl side. But they've been doing a lot of good stuff for EF as well. But we couldn't have both, so we had to choose one side, and we went for the metal powerhouse. Yeah.
Also on Pelagic, you released a collaboration with Tiny Fingers, if I remember correctly. That was 2016, 17, 16, right? So
16.
How did that collaboration happen?
Well, it was mainly the Pelagic people that had this split single series, and we thought we didn't have enough songs to make a full album back then, but we wanted to release something new because it's been a couple of years since our Ceremonies album, and we felt that there will be a few more years before we have a new full album. So let's release something in between that is not just a digital single or something. Like, we want to release something physical. And Robin from Pelagic said that we could be a part of the Pelagic single series with Tiny Fingers that just signed with them as well. And quite interesting match. I don't know if it's gained something for us as a new fans from that more, what you call it, math metal rock.
It's more mathy, right? Definitely.
Yeah. But I think it was an interesting mix, and it was fun to just get something new out there.
So let's imagine the following. You're hitting big time and you can curate a one-day festival with 5 bands playing, including EF itself. First of all, which slot would EF be playing in? And second of all, which other 4 bands would you choose?
EF doesn't like to headline festivals because then you get too much shine on you. We'd rather be in the middle, so people are still sober enough to enjoy us. I would say that we would be maybe if it's just 5 bands, we'll be second last. But we will definitely bring Radiohead as a headliner. Radiohead has always been a big influence for us as musicians. Both as even in our hardcore years, we listen a lot to Radiohead. So they will definitely headline. Beside that, we would bring the Danish indie rock band Knack, who released a couple of albums and didn't get the attention they should have. They actually opened up for us in Munich in 2010, I think, before they split up, and I had to just tell them how much they meant to me as a musician and in my young hardcore years, and that I couldn't really believe that they were actually opening up for us. It should have been the opposite, but that's how music life works. So Knack would be there. Swedish band Breach would definitely be there. Also, post metal, I don't know how post they were. They were maybe the metal.
They were pre-post metal. So
they were pre-post metal.
Yeah.
Fantastic band.
Have you listened to his new band, Norna?
I have. It's good,
awesome.
but not as good as Breach.
But who can be as good as Breach?
No.
So that would be 4 bands, including yourself, right now.
Yeah,
Last one.
and I would also like to bring the young band from Sweden that also didn't get the attention they deserve. It's called Jennifer Rever.
Oh yeah.
They started out quite at the same time as us, but really never got anywhere. So productive and such good musicians. They were really good at playing their instruments.
That will be an interesting lineup.
Yeah, and they sing a lot. I like that.
That's true. So let's imagine you can also close that set with a cover song. You can cover any song ever recorded. Which one would you like? Which one would you like to cover with EF, and why?
If we would cover a song, we would probably try to do it in such a different way that you would not hear that is the original song. I know that our member Daniel would love us to play a Michael Jackson song, but I don't know how we would do it in the post-rock way. But we would probably not be as funky or.
Have you listened to that Aerogram cover of Thriller, like also 20 years back? That was like also a very interesting cover.
Oh, I must check it out. Maybe that could be inspiring.
Yeah. They slowed it down, I don't know, probably by 200%. And then it was just guitar. It was an awesome cover by an awesome band. Unfortunately, also not with us for I don't know how many years now. Last and obvious question before we come to our quickfire round. You have kept us waiting for several years. Please say that we don't have to wait until 2026 or 2027 for news or new sounds.
I must say that we need to see how the world is ending before I can give you any news on that one. I think it's more our surrounding now that will keep us from meeting up. We will also do a couple of shows now in November and try to head out in May as well. And I know that when we're rehearsing for a tour, we never create new stuff. So the more we will tour, the less new music we will create. And hopefully will be before 2026.
That would be nice. So, our quickfire round. You always get 2 alternatives and you have to choose one of them. And maybe give a short explanation why. Let's start off with something that one does not really hear in your sound, but we already at least threw it in here. If you could listen to one genre for one day only, would you rather listen to prog rock or gent metal?
What's gent metal?
Like Meshuggah.
Oh, fuck, no. I'd rather prog rock.
Coming back to your hardcore roots, Refused or Abhinanda?
Refused.
Sick of It All or H2O?
Sick of It All.
You've mentioned that you also like a lot of indie, so one question must be Maximo Park versus Block Party, because you're not as danceable as Franz Ferdinand.
Nah, I probably choose Block Party. I think they had some quite interesting things going on there in the middle of their career.
Giving you 2 alternative Radiohead albums, Kid A or OK Computer?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I know.
I think I'm saying Kid A because I have a lot of teenage memories to that one, and it's really that was quite the thing we were talking about earlier, how a band can make a new album and just totally go in a different direction and make it good. So I must say Kid A. Idiotech is one of my all-time favorite songs.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's go to the post-rock and post-metal side a little bit more. Mogwai versus Ranges.
Mogwai. Hardcore Will Never Die, But You Will is definitely one of the best post-rock albums out there.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much music they have already released and how little of it is redundant, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Godspeed You Black Emperor or Explosions in the Sky?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I know.
I've seen both bands live, and I must say that Explosions in the Sky on album, but Godspeed live.
That's a very good choice. Sigur Rós or PG Lost?
Sorry, Christian and Matthias, but I go for Sigur Rós.
Now, when we talk about Pelagic, I also wanted to give you a Pelagic alternative. Arms and Sleepers versus Set and Setting.
We've done a lot of shows with Arms and Sleepers, and I love that. I'm choosing my friend here.
Okay. When you're already talking about touring, what would you prefer, touring or writing and recording?
You need to tour to I mean, you need to record something to go on tour. But when you go on tour and you get the feedback from the crowd and see how people talking to a lot of people, that feeling is unbeatable. You can spend many hours in the studio and never get any feedback at all. So I rather go on tour and see how people like what I've been creating.
And last one, to stay inside Sweden, Umeå hardcore or Gothenburg death metal?
Umeå hardcore.
Umeå hardcore, I would have thought so. So, Niklas, thanks a lot for the interview. Everybody, the record will be out in a few days, and you should listen to it. And it's a really interesting thing that they have unleashed upon us. Lots of very diverse songs, a wonderful record. Thanks for being with us, Niklas.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
See you out there.
Hope so. Take care, my friend.
You too. Bye-bye.